friends. And so it is officially 5:05, so we're going to get started with our presentation. Today we have Felicia Cologne, who is someone that I met in real life. I think we were connected on social media prior, but I met you in real life, I believe, in 2018 at an
hmm
educational event that I hosted in Texas. And it has just been a wonderful following each other on social media and had a chance to get together with you at Congress this past year and just be social and just talk about your career. And so I'm so happy that you have come here today to share your career journey. And what's unique about Felicia is that she is on the vendor side. So it's so interesting. When you made a comment about vendors kind of not getting enough attention or not being exactly welcomed in ACHE in the same way, I felt
hmm
that because I've noticed like it's almost like you all are in a different category versus the healthcare executives. So, first, I would love for you to share your career journey, how you got interested in healthcare, how you rose through the ranks as a healthcare executive, and then how you pivoted to the vendor side of things. Because, I think that there are people that might be curious about working as a vendor and might not be sure how to get started or even if they would like it. So I would love for you to start with sharing your journey.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Felicia Cologne. Thank you, Dr. Love, for allowing me to participate in this session. And I know we're going to kind of take a life and a journey of Felicia Cologne, but I would like to say that it started back in humble beginnings in Jacksonville, Florida, where I was going to college and I actually wanted to be a nurse. So, I was in nursing school. And spaghettios, I did end up like a lot of college students. Well, maybe not a lot. If they're good girls, then they didn't end up pregnant like I did, but I did, and had my son right before I came out of or going into clinicals for nursing. And the first thing I thought to myself is, I do not want to be on my feet and be 9 months pregnant, which probably was the bad idea because you see plenty of nurses who are on their feet and they are pregnant. But that was my thought at that time. So I went to the counselor and said, hey, listen, I want to do something where I think my nursing prerequisites can still qualify into the bachelor's degree because I didn't want to start all over again. And so they recommended social work. And so, okay, I'm on a track for social work. I go to one class, which was somewhat of a healthcare administrator class. And the professor stopped me at the door and said, Are you here for healthcare administration or the social worker? And I said, I'm doing the social worker track. And he said, I don't want to tell you this, but you don't look like a social worker. You should really consider healthcare administration. That is the first professor, Dr. Harrison. I still remember him to this day, who also
Mhm.
told me about the American College of Healthcare Executives. We'll stick a pin in that and I'll come back to that. But I know the intent of what he stated behind that because I guess he could already see leadership in me for some of the projects that we were leading in class. And he was like, I don't know, social worker is the route that you'd want to go. So here I go back to the advisor again to then switch my major to healthcare administration. Healthcare administration back then, and I'm talking about late 90s, early 2000s. Now I'm
Mhm.
telling myself, but was really a degree that was set for clinicians that were then trying to get to the next level and do administration. So for those nurses that had already gone through nursing school before the track came out, they would have something like a healthcare administration degree. So, I know enough clinical to still be dangerous. And for those of you who are like, let me skip ahead. Felicia, did you ever go and pursue your nursing degree? I will tell you, 2 years ago, I asked one of my friends to look at my transcripts to see if I could still qualify. And she's like, no, you're going to have to do the whole thing all over again. You've been out far too long, and nursing has changed far too much for you to try
Right.
to bridge from healthcare administration back to that. But
Oh, okay.
nonetheless, I did go in for my bachelor's degree in healthcare administration, which is different because there are a lot of students that go with their master's degree in healthcare administration. But my
Hmm.
master's degree is actually in business administration. And so when I graduated with my bachelor's, of course, I was like a typical working student, single parent. So
Yeah.
we had to work to make ends meet. And I actually worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, which is now called Florida Blue.
Wow,
And
as a new
so
grad, you work for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Oh,
yes.
wow.
And I will
Okay.
tell you, this is where nepotism comes in all the way. My mom worked there. She was a
Okay.
director.
I
She
was
got
gonna
me
say
in.
that's unusual.
Yeah, and I hadn't even graduated yet. She was a director. She got me in. I worked in customer
Okay.
service. And again, this is where you put your head down, you do your work, but people
Mhm.
identify untapped skills of leadership. And so I was moved to an account manager role very quickly early on in my career. And in the account manager role is how I started then traveling for work because I
Mhm.
would visit different doctor offices on behalf of Florida Blue to go and make sure that they were compliant since they were trying to become in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida. That is also when I started doing speaking engagements many
Mhm.
years ago to talk about what it was to be in network, how you can have great customer experience for our patients, their
Yeah.
patients, but our patrons. So that way they didn't get complaints going back up to the insurance company like this doctor had me waiting 2 hours and I got
Mhm.
to pay a $500 deductible, which is I'd rather pay that than the 5,000 we pay now. I
Yeah.
digress.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, one of the administrators for one of the clinics ended up at UF Health and Shands, Jacksonville, which is a level 1 trauma center in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mhm.
And she said they have an opening for a program manager director role, like a service line administrator role, because they need to split out the teaching service into adult internal medicine. This was back in '07 when ACGME rules were just really starting to change. And you can't have these residents working 24/7 around the clock. You need to have patients who were sitting on your actual service and then moved over once you were done with the teaching component and then on to the next case because you couldn't give these residents like you did back in the day a whole bunch of patients to see. That was no mas when the ACGME rules came out. So I actually applied, got the job, and then I started out with 3 physicians under my lead by after 2 years with my leadership and working with who was the professor slash medical director at the time. We grew it to 22 physicians. So I know, Dr. Love, you're like, well, Felicia, that's great. That's how you got into the hospital, but how did you get on the vendor side? Back in the early 2000s, there were 4 major companies that were considered clinical management companies. And you may know some of them today: Sound Physicians, Cogent
Mhm.
Healthcare, IPC, which later became Team Health, and then there's another one that I cannot remember who they are. But nonetheless, Cogent Healthcare is the one who came. They were coming to consult about hospital medicine, right? Because we were a teaching program, but we also wanted to grow the program in conjunction with the footprint for UF Shands Jacksonville at the time. And the great thing is that they're the ones who are like, we would love for you to come and work for us. And that's exactly what
Wow.
I did. So then I went as that service line administrator to a regional director, and I actually traveled for Cogent Healthcare and got to see that was my exposure into rural America,
Mhm.
other metropolitan areas. I mean, you take a little Florida girl, and all of a sudden she's being thrown up in programs up in North Carolina and Georgia and Florida. My footprint isn't as big as what it is now as it was then, but you
Mhm.
still got to see healthcare. And Dr. Love, this is where I really started seeing where gaps of care exist if you don't have representation in the C suite of the community that you serve. And so, working with Cogent Healthcare, did that for 7 years, and then we were acquired by Sound Physicians. I stayed on with Sound for about almost 2 years. Then I transitioned into a senior VP for a private physician group here in Texas, and then got a call. Here we go again, where your reputation precedes you, from somebody who knew me from the previous company who
Wow.
said, I would love for you to come in as a regional VP for SCP Health. Now, under SCP Health, which was back in the day Schumacher Clinical Partners, that's where I've been for the past 10 years, and I've served in four different roles, all the way from operations to service line development. I developed their entire e-health service line to now market development, which is on the business development side.
Wow, that's amazing. So, one of the questions that I have for you, because for healthcare executives, there are skill sets that you must have, there are competencies that you must have. What would you say is the difference between the skills and the competencies you need as a healthcare executive versus transitioning to the vendor side? Because I would imagine the competencies are going to be different.
Thank you for asking that question. And I thought about that because I know that there is a difference. And when you're in site leadership, right, that means you're the executive, even if you're in a system, you're still
Mhm.
responsible for your book of business. When you work for the vendor side, what I like to call strategic partner,
Yeah.
you are at a national level, multiple systems, multiple hospital areas, and what a local leader would have in terms of driving immediate results, managing teams and managing budgets. When you get to the national level, you have to operate at a different altitude. Not
Right.
only do you have to learn the culture there, and you have to learn the C-suite executives and their expectations, but you also go into a different level of fiduciary responsibility, right?
Mhm.
Because you're managing this large book of accounts. I'm not responsible for one hospital, but I know that if I make an adjustment somewhere or if I impact one, it can have long-term effects across a multitude of locations. So if the company that I work for, they have to make an adjustment on rates impacts Texas, Texas will then increase by XYZ number of dollars. And so the fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we do not pass off the subsidy to our clients because we are being responsible with how we staff, the type of the clinicians that are there, making sure quality is still there, patient experience is still there. We need to make sure that the physicians and allied healthcare providers collaborate well with nursing because if we are responsible for nursing quitting, we are in big time trouble if our physicians can't collaborate with them well. We
Right.
also have to go by oversight, not execution. Our philosophy for not only the company that I work for, but for several of the clinical management companies that exist today, even though
Yeah.
we're national, the care is local. Even though we're national, the medical directors are local. They're vested in their community. So, what do we look like coming in and not recognizing the local market pressures that impact that hospital? Now, what we can provide to that medical director, of course, is going to be training, best practices, things that they would not normally probably have access to because now I'm a medical director on site. I now have 500 other medical directors that I can now tap into. I
Right.
have specific educational learnings that are afforded to me through a national company
Hmm.
versus I can just, decide to join ASEP or Society of Hospital Medicine. It broadens the horizon. One of the other things that I think that a lot of people recognize when you're a strategic partner or the vendor side, such as myself, is the
Hmm.
long term sustainability versus short term gains. Because our goal, once we get in and we are managing your emergency medicine, hospital medicine, critical care, anesthesia, radiology, the what it takes for us to come in, align with the enterprise of not only the national company but your hospital as well. If you get
Right.
a new CFO who comes in 3 years and turns over your contract, then you haven't done anything. The true goal is to sustain the contract there. So whereas a local site leader might ask, hey, how do we do this year? What
Hmm.
someone on the vendor and the national side, especially at my level, is how is this client going to maintain us and trust us 5 years from now? Because our
Hmm.
goal is not to come in there, service the contract, and be out in 3 years. Our goal is to be a strategic partner. And as the hospital changes, we change with them. And I always like to use the analogy health is two H's, and in the middle, there's L. That L
Hmm.
means leadership. And that's where they look to us as a national company to provide that to them, but through the local leaders that are there.
Yeah. So as you're speaking, I was thinking, what are the performance metrics that you are held accountable to?
Well, it depends on which side, because I feel like I have two boxes. When
I
it
want to
comes to
hear
the
both
hospital,
boxes. I want to hear both. Yeah, please.
yeah, so when it comes to both hospitals and even our own organization, we have our own specific benchmarks. I'm going to give the emergency room as an example. We are still
Mhm.
measured on left without being seen. I'm sure everybody has seen the HBO Pit series. Yes, that is real life. And you cannot be responsible for patients coming in and walking right out because they see a whole bunch of people waiting to get in to see the doctor
Mhm.
because we don't have appropriate throughput mechanisms. That's
Right.
where you have to really learn the culture of the hospital in order to push throughput, even though we don't have the nurses, right? We've got the
Mhm.
clinician side. But that is some of the examples. So, left without being seen, left against medical advice, the door to doctor time, sepsis protocols,
Mhm.
as it relates to trauma, our response to certain trauma events that are happening, our own clinical outcomes. So, not only are we benchmarked at the hospital level, but we're benchmarked at the national level in different cohorts, meaning different program sizes. So if you're a large metropolitan area, of course, we're not going to compare you to a rural hospital that we also have physicians in. We would do rural hospitals. You could even do by state. The great thing about working for a national company is that you can mine the data analytics to the nth degree and form various patterns and be able to really drive results at the local level because now you've got access to all the data. We
Yeah.
see millions of patients in a year. So imagine what we can do to better drive patient experience outcomes,
Mhm.
sepsis outcomes, anything related to clinical and actual patient quality. We just had a meeting and we were talking about social determinants of health and how many appropriate responses we have for that because our organization is also focused on access to care and health equity. Answering those questions prevents a readmission on the back end when you really can get the patient connected in the community. And
Yeah.
those are the kind of metrics that we're measured on. Now, in terms of the big boss, the
Hmm.
company, of
Yeah.
course, we need to have the fiduciary responsibility, right? We are not going to be bringing in locums physicians. What do we need to do to ensure that we are not overstaffing? That's how telemedicine got to grow so big for our organization pre-COVID, because it was
Hmm.
used for a stopgap for a lot of facilities that what's the next outcome? We can either get the nurse practitioner who's down the street to drive over, that's going to take however long, or we set up telemedicine. They can stay at site, knock off that shift because it's low volume, hop on a computer and start to clear out patients in the waiting room at the other location by at
Wow.
least initiating the medical screening exam.
Yeah.
So there are things like that where you can be really creative, but in the fiduciary manner to make sure that you're not overstaffing, putting in physicians that are getting paid a lot of money because that goes right back to the hospital and we have to maintain appropriate cost structure and cost containment for them.
Right.
Workforce optimization is huge now,
Yeah.
so we have, as an example, artificial intelligence based on all these years that we've been doing this that will actually be able to forecast for us what they think the volumes are going to be. And that's where you can staff to the minimum. And then you use something like telemedicine, flex pay, half
Mhm.
shifts, quarter shifts, whatever the creativity needs to be to make sure that you hit those peaks and you're not wearing physicians out. So we have things like that. One thing I can tell you specifically to SCP Health that I appreciate is that clinician wellness is one of the metrics. And we have a chief clinician wellness officer. So I want to put in a plug if you ever want to talk to him, I will
Yeah.
introduce you to him, Dr. Love,
I would
because it's
love that.
interesting in the sense of a company, a clinician physician company that is physician led to ensure that they support their female physicians appropriately. The
Hmm.
young fathers who are coming out trying to hold down household who want to be participatory in their kids' lives.
Right.
The older seasoned physician that is on the back half of their career can't crank out 15 shifts anymore, but still want to remain active clinically. So those are some of the metrics that we have at the national level.
And so I'm curious, do you share this data with the hospitals that you serve? Do you like put out an annual report or, I love seeing this kind of data because I feel like it informs the work that we need to do. So do you all make it a point to share this data with the organizations that you serve?
Yes, we do. So we come out with an annual report. So 2025 is soon to be released.
Mhm.
And
Is it
when
public? Like,
it
can
is
anybody
public.
get it?
It is
Oh,
pushed out
okay.
public. So, you'll see a press release come out soon. And the great thing is about it is that not only does it talk about just our quality metrics, what we've been able to do, because it's still a
Mhm.
passion of mine. It talks about telemedicine too. And
Yeah.
over the course of the past few years, we've done over 1 million interactions via telehealth.
Wow.
And that's just the hospital medicine side. That's not even targeting any of the other service lines that we've happened to expand into. And when
Mhm.
you take a step back and think about access to care, for this company, SCP Health, they started out about 50 years ago in rural Louisiana. To me, they had access to care issues back then
Mhm.
before it was even nationally recognized and coined a phrase. So, to me, to see what we've been able to do at the bedside for rural America and then translate that going now into metropolitan areas means something because everybody's facing headwinds. And one thing I can share with you that I'm a firm believer of, if you ever want to know what it feels like to make ends meet and to be the CEO, CFO, COO all in one shebang and CNO, work in a rural healthcare setting. When you
Right.
want to talk about patient experience and really understanding that healthcare is not a known, this is what happens when I come to the hospital, rural healthcare does it as well. So I am just thankful that I have had travels in over 30 of our 50 states. I want to say I'm probably up to number 38 by now of our 50 states seeing healthcare. And the challenges are the same in terms of the fear that regular people have going into the doctor. You can see it when it breaks down by ethnicity. I know, Dr. Love, I'm Hispanic. So, how
Mhm.
Hispanics may treat the healthcare system versus African Americans versus other counterparts is different,
Right.
but the same when you go between rural America and into the urban locations.
Mhm.
So, again, the annual report will highlight some of those things that we do, and it does come out every single year.
And for someone who is doing the line of work that you are doing, and I think you kind of touched on it, what do you think the skill set is that we need to focus on now for the future? Just anticipating what the future work looks like.
Do not lock yourself in a box. I think
Mhm.
it is ultimately important to not only know the business acumen, but the financial acumen. You also have to have an appreciation for the clinical component. And I'm a non clinician. Like I make a joke that I play a doctor or a nurse on TV just because when I did the trainings for telemedicine, that's what I played at the time.
Right.
But when you think about how to support clinicians, you cannot come in as a non-clinician administrator and dictate what the doctor should do or what the nurse
Right.
practitioner should do. That
That's
will be a breakdown in discussion so fast. So, when it really comes to implementing strategy, you have to have a lens. And even if you don't have the lens because you're not exposed to that, you have to involve the people who do the work. So,
Mhm.
in terms of skill set, number one, don't put yourself in a box. If you're the MBA and you like financials, great, but you got to understand some clinical component and recognize that there's a patient behind that dollar bill sign that you see. If
Mhm.
you are a clinical leader, great, but you've got to have some comfort with the financials and understand that there is a business to medicine, whether you like that dollars and cents and plus and minus and divide or not. And then if you're all around operator, your goal is to execute. But if your execution doesn't align with the strategy of the enterprise and of the CEO, then all you're doing is busy work that's not making a bigger impact on what your organization's mission should be. And so again, when it comes to, well, what kind of skill set do I need? You need kind of everything. You need to be the one man band where I go like this and it's the cymbals, I crack my knees and that's the drum and I can play the horn and march at the same time. So you need all of those components to be successful, and you need to be able to feel comfortable asking people their opinion. A lot of people don't want to do that
Mm.
because you're the fear of what the honesty would be, but that's how you show up authentically, is because you are involving someone who actually is at the bedside. You cannot make a decision based on a financial metric without understanding the impact that it's going to make downstream at the bedside.
Right. So, do you have any insight on companies like yours and what the strategic direction is? Like, are you all looking at investing in standalone ERs or urgent cares or like it, do you have any insight into where they feel the healthcare dollars are going to be best utilized?
Well, it is my duty now in this market development role that I pay attention to everyone. So that is exactly what I'm doing. But I'll just kind of take that as a step back and really focus on where hospital dollars are pushing. Hospital dollars are pushing an outpatient. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, of course, the freestanding EDs, the urgent care, and stuff like that is one component, but so are the ambulatory care clinics.
Right.
And the interesting thing is now that there's so much stuff that is occurring in the outpatient setting. So we just had this debate, myself and a few other from business development, in having almost like a roundtable with another COO. And he was right. It's almost like your ambulatory care is competing for the same CRNA that you need at the hospital. So what do
Mm-hmm.
you do in that
Right.
regards? So I think what we are recognizing as an industry is that, of course, the four walls care is going to be delivered outside of that, but everybody's been saying that. But you're seeing true acquisition, true consolidation that's happening outside of the four walls of the hospital as it relates to ambulatory care, freestanding clinics, urgent care systems. I know I went to an event, the Florida Hospital Association, and my parents still live in Florida. I'm 1,500 miles away here in Texas. And
Mm.
when they did the graph, their president of the Florida Hospital Association showed the graph of how many elderly will either migrate in or become elderly in Florida by 20, let's say 2040. You can't even
Mm-hmm.
build enough facilities to accommodate that. And guess what? Florida's land, well, waterlocked, I could say. And
Yeah.
every time I go and visit my parents in Florida, it's like, well, shucks, man, where are they going to put the next hospital? And they find places to put the next hospital.
Wow.
So to anticipate the growth of the community, because you will still have an acuity that is
Mm-hmm.
going to be very high. But then you'll need to push to the lower cost of care, which is the ambulatory care settings for surgeries. But I think
Right.
we're all, from a national standpoint, trying to position ourselves to be able to support our respective hospital partners in whatever direction they want to go. But recognizing that the same emergency medicine physician that we have that we're putting in the hospital can also go 2 minutes up the road to the freestanding ED and
Mm.
work there and get paid $50 more. So where are the dollars going to start to happen, because reimbursement is not increasing for anybody.
Right.
And so that's where you're starting to have crucial conversations related to, okay, there's us at the hospital, we're there with them. Do we
Mm-hmm.
go then partner with that freestanding to make sure that rates can stay reasonable? Otherwise, it'll be like some of the metropolitan areas where they go 10 cents more, and then
Right.
you have a massive shift over there. And wage inflation is going to come to a head. So that's probably one of the other things that we're focused on from a national component.
And so your statement made me a little curious. With your current physicians and, clinicians, do you hire them into contracts where they're expected to float and to rotate to different hospitals? Like, is that an expectation for?
Some do. Some stay at their actual level, and where they float is really they float within the system. So if we have a large system and they've got 5 hospitals that are in the area, then if a physician is interested, we can put them in all five. And some actually like that. They enjoy, let me get a break and I'm going to go work at the little hospital down the road, but I know I'm going to be doing sutures. I know I'm going to be doing everything because they don't have as many nurses to. I've got the high acuity and you don't know what's coming in the door because they're the level one trauma center. So there are clinicians that thrive on having a mix every time that they go to work. Then you have some that just want to stay at their one site. But a lot of the national organizations, such as the one that I work for, we all have probably travel teams. These are clinicians that I'm gonna get up, you put me on assignment I go, get it stable for the next 3 months, and then off to the next one. It's almost like military deployment.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I loved. I mean, I did some travel nursing way, way, way back in the day. And I do agree that sometimes there's a sense of relief that you're on this assignment for a limited time and then you're moving on to the next thing. So I get that. So now I want to make sure to make time to talk about some of your experience with like mentors and sponsors. Did you have any special mentors or sponsors in your life that you feel like really made a difference?
I did, and I was lucky again that people recognized my talents before I recognized my own. I
Mm,
think one of the two mentors come to mind. One was the one who hired me into from the administrator at UF Health and Shands, and she hired me into Cogent Healthcare, and her name is
mm,
Joanne Loper. And if you're out there, I want to wave hi to you because she was one who instilled the mentorship in me in sense of being a female, being young, how I was going to be perceived, making
mm,
sure that how I had my professional, I guess, approach and executive presence. She really taught me about executive presence. And what I appreciate about her is the fact that she embraced femininity coming into a boardroom where it was all male. And I got to see this firsthand. So, if there were all men and they were talking about sports, yeah, she could talk about sports too, but she would change that conversation really quickly because we're here for business. We're not going to spend 15 minutes talking about your golf game. And she kept it moving. And one thing she told me, she said, I love pantsuits, but she's like, for a female to come in a dress suit or a dress and have the
mhm.
same level of authority for someone who is a male coming in, that means something. So she
Yeah.
was one who really taught me to embrace
Mhm,
being a female in leadership and stepping out into authenticity. The second mentor that I always talk about is Jim Guidry. He is who I work for now. He's at
mhm,
SCP Health. So hi, Jim, too. And he was one who he met me at one of the little regional meetings that we had. And he was like, hold on, whose department are you in? How have I not met you? He's like, I've heard your name. And he's like, and I presented on telemedicine at the time because I had already been given that service line and I was presenting
yeah.
metrics and this, that, and the other. And he was just like, this is great. They've had you hidden. So he took me under his wing. He is the one who I actually can say represented as a sponsor because people knew who I was before I got there. And because of him, I have actually gone into three different roles. So I've
Mhm,
gone into a group operating officer. I've been a senior VP over the eHealth service line, and now I'm
mhm.
in market development, all three roles of which he has encouraged for me to go into. So I appreciate the fact that, again, he saw skill sets in me
Yeah.
that probably were always apparent, but this is where the sponsor comes in and says, I need you all to consider this young lady for this role because this is what she brings to the table. And
Mhm.
I remember having, how do I call it, salary discussions with him.
Yeah.
And I came in like with my data presenting on market rates and where I thought I would be. And
All
he's
right.
like, Felicia, I just want to tell you, you're going to have talks about your salary from here until you step out of whatever career you're in. And he's like,
That's
it needs
right.
to be about value that you bring. He's like, it's great that you have all these market analysis. He's like,
Right.
what do you do for this company? He's like, that's
Right.
what you need to talk about. That's what
Oh,
you need to sign the
awesome.
dollar sign about. So I learned, yes,
Mhm.
but I learned in that instance of what it feels like to truly advocate for yourself. And he's given me
Yeah.
that wisdom.
All right, I want to take this question from Stephen Burns. With the ongoing shift toward an ambulatory focus in healthcare, have you encountered challenges in creating standardized processes and consistent outcome expectations across a diverse delivery model? It often seems that visiting one ambulatory clinic within a hospital system only provides insight into how the specific clinic operates, even though there are may be dozens or hundreds of clinics within the same system, each functioning independently and differently.
Yes, and thank you for that question, Stephen. And I'll be completely honest. National companies such as ourselves are set up to identify and strategize and create processes. Now, what is the rate limiting step is if the hospital partner of ours wants us to be involved in the outpatient clinic arena. Some do, some don't. Right now, you got the outpatient clinic arena that is led by the surgeons. So, guess what? We are going to let the surgeons run that. I think there will come a time, especially as you introduce different services that can be done in the outpatient setting. If you have to introduce, okay, it's ambulatory care, but now we are able to do overnight, 2 night stays, that's where you'll have to have hospitalists. That's where you'll still then probably need to engage services such as ours. But there are a lot of, I guess you could say, ambulatory care clinic systems now that you're right, would love to be able to tap into it. So if you know of any, give me a call. But outside of that, that should be the next area of focus is how you start to structure that. I don't know, Dr. Love, let's go into business for ourselves
I
and we're
know,
going to start
right?
going to ambulatory care clinics and
Yes,
lining
and
that up. But I'm
yeah, and
not
I
seeing the
have.
standardization in that like I am in the hospital sector. Not yet.
No, I would say the best standardization I saw was within the Department of Veterans Affairs. We were
Yeah.
pretty good. Once they send down a directive from Washington, D.C., these are the orders. And when you get inspected by OIG, they're going to bring out that directive and say, do you have this, this in place? If not, you better get it in place. And so it was a little bit of command and control, but it led to structure and consistency across the clinics.
Agreed, agreed. And I think there are so many lessons learned that we can gain from military health, maritime
Mhm.
health, I guess I could say, because the processes and procedures that the VA has in order to extend care to all of its members is it'd be great if we could just take a page out of that book.
Yes. All right. So now I have a question from Tim Grubb. Given the ROI that is driving growth in both professional services firms and AI SaaS solutions, who are addressing clinical validation weaknesses and insufficient documentation, how does SCP align incentives and support physicians to care about high quality documentation to ensure both the capture of adequate quality and revenue documentation?
So thank you, Tim. I will see you next week. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. As it relates to documentation, it
Hmm.
is ultimately important. I think we all can agree. For a hospital, it determines their case mix index,
Right.
DRGs, comorbidities. For us, that sit on the professional fees collection side, it means something to document to the highest level of specificity of the condition of that patient. So for us, we have outsourced. And what I mean by outsource is the physician drops whatever they think. Hey, I dropped the code on this patient, right? You
Right.
don't have a doctor trying to sit there and figure out if they're level 3, 2, or 1. That we're
Hmm.
already out the door when that comes to that fact. And then we have certified coders. So
Hmm.
our coding camp sits over here in Dallas, where I'm at, and we have certified coders that review the doctor's information. They send them a query immediately. When I tell you it is so real time for that
Yeah.
documentation review, because our coders have access
Yes.
into the EMRs. Of course, when
Mhm.
a doctor finalizes a note and says, yep, I saw that patient, then you have somebody who reviews it, who can say, hey, doctor, when you stated this, did it mean this or this? They can go
Right.
ahead and correct it. They correct it in a note. We've got our own proprietary information that proprietary app, I should say, that allows the doctor to correct it immediately and off they go. For hospital systems, you all, to not
Mm,
chase the doctor down before they're getting suspended, or to not chase a doctor down to say, please, can you clarify this one statement, is an administrative burden that's offloaded of our hospitals, and it's offloaded of the physician as well. We also have various ambient listening. We have aligned with an organization for ambient listening, and we are piloting it in a few of our hospitals, and we're already seeing an increase in work RVUs, and we're seeing an increase in just level of specificity because
right.
a physician is not staring at a computer, half listening
Right.
to the patient. They're going
Hmm.
in and having a natural dialogue, which patients are appreciating. And we probably are going to see an increase in patient experience just as a
Mm,
result of that. And then it is putting it into a note, again, using our proprietary information, putting it into a note for then, of course, the certified coders to review on the back end. So, our goal as a national company, and I'm sure all of them are like this too, is to reduce the administrative burden of a physician to where you're at the bedside, you're not sitting
hmm.
here plucking away documentation. And then
Right.
I really think doctors are well intended, because I do see you, Dr. Sherry. So I don't know if Dr. Sherry is a bedside clinician, but you really do see a physician well intended to do documentation. But when you're trying to see 18 patients, and then
Right.
you're sitting down going back to patient one, and then you have a nurse to come and say, hey, I need clarification on patient number 5. Did you mean this order or this order? You've lost your train of thought. So there
Yeah.
are clinicians that regrettably are trying to do their best in documentation, but that's the administrative burden that we've offloaded from them.
Right. Well, I will tell you, when it comes to the ambient listening, we are trying to use that here at the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center. However, I think we've discovered it does not work well in the Latinx population. They
Mm,
don't do well with Spanish speaking patients. And I mean, you've got, Haitian Creole and all these other languages. When it comes to that ambient listening, I don't think they cover multiple languages. So that's something they need to improve on so that we can use it with more populations.
agreed. Just like translator services, you've got the major
Mhm.
dialects, and then you'll have some nuanced dialect, and it's like, where is that on the
Right.
translator services? So, as an example, we are going to, in Dallas, Texas, have 9 of the FIFA World Cups here. And 2 of the FIFA World Cups are going to be towards the final series. We had a session back in 2024 with the
Hmm.
hospitals. It was an executive exchange. It was done through American College of Healthcare Executive North Texas, where we had
Okay.
the actual person who's responsible for getting these kind of bids in. And then we had
Hmm.
all of the different hospital administrators that participated in it. What was the main thing? Security, because you want to make sure patients are safe coming in, and translator services,
Right.
because you're going to have people experiencing our healthcare system. And
Mhm.
then if you don't have, we've all seen the signs, they got English, Spanish, and maybe another language. What do we do about the other languages? And then
That's
depending
right.
on who gets to those finals for the FIFA World Cup depends on who's here. So it's almost like, well, how can you even translate out your signs, your signage that fast to accommodate what language it might be? Now, I'm excited the FIFA World Cup is here, but at the same time, too, they said it's going to be like a Super Bowl when it happens. So that's like 9 Super
Yes.
Bowls.
Each one is
Each
like a Super
one
Bowl.
is like
Yeah.
9 Super Bowls.
Because we're having something here in the Boston area as well. So we're kind of going through that preparation as well. Now, earlier you mentioned ACHE, but we haven't really had a chance to talk about it. So I want you to share how ACHE has impacted your work and your career trajectory.
Yes. So I've been a member of ACHE for more than 20 years now. So I want to say I started when I was 8. Y'all, I'm 28. We're going to stick with that. But I've been a member for more than 20 years. And the benefit about ACHE is, as I gave you all my story early on, even though I was a single parent, I still invested in that as if it was an investment of a craft. Like, I'm a singer taking voice lessons, right? I'm a
Right.
hospital administrator, healthcare administrator. I needed to invest in the healthcare professional organization that provided you with hot topics. working for a singular site at that time, how are you going to know who everybody else was doing unless you were in something like American College of Healthcare Executives and actually
Mhm.
got to network with other hospital administrators? Because how else would I be exposed to them at church? Okay, but you don't go around telling people where you work. So when you have entities like American College of Healthcare Executives and the local chapters host a networking event, that's how you get exposed to different executives. That's how you then, if you want to make a career move, you go and it's, oh, I know that person because again, your reputation precedes you. Then I have a personal story as it relates to American College of Healthcare Executives, and I moved 1,500 miles away from Florida to Dallas, Texas, and knew not a soul.
Right.
And the only people that I knew were the physicians that I worked with at that particular practice. And I didn't know anybody else. And here I am, coming from Jacksonville, Florida to 7 point however million people they have in Dallas. It was intimidating. I go
Hmm.
from Jacksonville, where our networking events were 50, to now Dallas, where we were networking and it's 250 people in the room. But
Wow.
again, when you go to something like an ACHE event, you already have something in common. They work in healthcare. So all you have to do is just say, hey, so who do you work for? And
Right.
I want to say that it has provided me with mentorship because I actually, when I first came to Dallas, joined the mentorship program. They had opened it up to mid-careerists at the time. And I
Hmm.
wanted somebody to share with me how to navigate the healthcare arena here, understanding that it's very competitive in a Dallas Fort Worth market. So the great thing about American College of Healthcare Executives is not only does it help you stay on top of hot topics, you understand the pressures of what other like you could say administrators are going through, other hospital systems are going through, but you also have an appreciation for the networking events. You make
Right.
friends. There are friends that I met when I first came out here to Dallas that I'm still friends with. Look at me and you, Dr. Love. You and I have known each
Right.
other for a while and stayed in contact with one another. And
Yeah.
so the great thing is that I did become president of the local chapter here in
Hmm.
DFW, and now I'm stepping in as region at large for District 4, which puts my jurisdiction over 9 states. So when you say I'm a passionate believer of it, I am a passionate believer all the way to I got a whole nother job, and it's through ACHE, it feels like.
That's right. And they will put you to work. So
Yes.
I'm glad that you mentioned your roles because I think there are people that want to get more involved in the ACHE governance structure. And so just share how you got started, like participating in chapter events and committees and things like that, and how you advanced all the way up to being the president and now a region at large.
So for me, it was participating in committees. That's probably what gave me the most exposure. And the first committee that I joined was the membership and networking committee because I figured, that's where I also came into this like, oh my, 250 people. I was even intimidated. And, I met one person who then introduced me to others, and there you have it. So, the membership and networking is the committee that I was a part of, but they also asked me eventually to become chair of the DE&I, what was then DE&I committee then. And so
Mhm.
that gave me exposure to committee work, which is also skills that you can add to your resume when you really think
That's
about
right.
what it takes to organize an event, and actually have volunteers, the feedback that you get off of that. It's a lot of work outside of your regular work, but it's well worth
Mhm.
it. From there, I started getting speaking engagements because people were like, well, Felicia, you're over D9. Do you want to talk about whatever the case may be?
Right.
And I would. So then the next thing you know, I'm getting asked to do a lot of speaking engagements. I actually have one of the members who was on the board who came up to me and was like, hey, you know what? I see you're very active. Have you ever thought about participating on the board? And I was like, board, sure. And so I self-nominated, well, they nominated, but I filled out the
Right.
application to go for the board. And I served on the board for 3 years. And then again, they liked my leadership style. And
Mm.
then I served as the secretary, then treasurer, and then eventually moved to president elect and then president, past president. I went for regent of North Texas and did not get that
Mhm.
role, but I think it's all in alignment because now I went for the region at large. And that was actually a position selected by the board of directors or the board of governors for ACHE. And
Nice.
Somebody knew who I was.
That's right. So, I know that you travel a lot for your work. And so I'm just wondering, like, what do you do? And I know you have a family. So what do you do for a work-life balance? Like, what does that look like for you?
Uh, if if this was a question 10 years ago, I'd confess to you and say I struggle, but I'm an empty nester now. So,
Oh, okay.
so the travel I still enjoy because I know that my family have been like, could you ever come off the road? And I'm like, I don't think I ever could. I go stir crazy. If I sit for 3 weeks, I don't even know what to do with myself. But what I did have to do was make time intentional. I think everybody, even if you were here sitting with your family every single day, it can feel like you never see them. And so, with me being on the road 2 to 3 days out of the week, it was intentional when I came home. I am a traditional mom in the sense where it was like we're sitting down as a family and we're eating. We're going to do stuff on the weekend together. Oh, you have your friends you want to take? Guess what? Put them in a car too, because we're going to go together as a family with them. And so, the time and effort and attention that you give your family, if you're on the road, and you still keep constant engagement with them, and then when you come home you're even that much more intentional, then it doesn't feel like you're gone. It really doesn't feel
Right.
like you're gone. It feels like you're gone if you do not spend time with the family. Everybody's got 20 different things that they're doing, and you don't sit down at dinner together, which sometimes happens, but you know what I mean by intentional effort.
Yeah. Well, so one last question, and I think that'll wrap us up. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to kind of take your career path and explore that world of being on the vendor side of things?
I would have to say, if you want to consider working for a national strategic partner, aka a vendor,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have some agility because, again, when you're talking about governance leadership, that's what you have to do at the national level versus site leadership when you just have systems or a hospital that you're paying attention to. Then the agility of we now have to pivot and move in a different direction is an everyday occurrence. If it's not from
Mm-hmm.
your actual organization, it's from 5 different hospitals that need you to do something differently. And you
Right.
have to come at it with strategic execution because, again, even though care is local, you still have to align those priorities to the enterprise. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody wanted to step into my role, you got to have agility. You have to be willing to move around because that's what national companies are for. You just because you're based right here right now doesn't mean 5 years from now you are going to be based in that same city, but it gives you opportunities too where you likely wouldn't have been exposed to. So for example, this, not this company, but the previous one moved me from Florida to Texas. And
Oh,
Texas has opened up my world in terms of ACHE. It's opened up my world in terms of friends like Dr. Love that I've gotten a chance to meet. I don't think I would have came across that in any other circumstance. And I also have to say, working for a national company, you have to have resiliency because we are all for profit. And when you're for
right.
profit, there are changes that are going to be constant. And so if the company shifts in one direction and a service line is not needed anymore, there
Mm-hmm.
are sadly rifts that happen, workforce rifts that happen, and you have to be
Right.
resilient and recognize that when you work for a national company, and they may not speak to your skill set as a person as to why you got rift, but then you just pick up the pieces and you move on to the next one and use what you've learned from that job for your next career.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I feel like we cover so many topics that I didn't even expect to cover. And for those who missed the session today, it is recorded. We will be putting it on our YouTube channel. And have fun at Congress, everybody. I'm gonna miss you. So thank you again and take care, you all. Safe travels.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, Dr. Love. Thank you so
You too.
much.
Bye.
Bye.